What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a special Wednesday preview edition with me and Raj and our guy, 49ers Plus podcast. We figured we'd all go today and kind of knock this thing out group style because it's a pretty big game coming up tomorrow. And I felt like getting opinions from more than just two people because I feel like, I don't know, it's cathartic for me to listen to other people's ideas and other people's thoughts because I'm really down on the Niners right now. So I'm always open to listening to other people's interpretations and ideas. So, how's everybody doing today?
Doing good, man. As good as we can until I don't know what, around midnight Eastern tomorrow. We can retest that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope it takes that long. I hope it's not over early and we're like, oh my God, I got to wait till like 12. The game's over right now. But we talked offline. I asked you guys offline what the first question was going to be, and we're going to get right into it. That is tomorrow a must-win game? I will start with Raj.
Absolutely, definitely, it's a must-win game. You cannot go to 0-3 in the division in the NFC West. I mean, right now they haven't won a game in the NFC, and if they don't lose, or if they lose tomorrow and they go 0-3 in the NFC West, it's going to be tough sailing. So, absolutely, to me, it's a must-win game. Nick Bosa says they're treating it like a must-win game, and then John Lynch this morning said, Kyle said, well, technically it's not must-win because you're not out of. It's a must-win game.
I heard might have been Mustafa or one of those guys says it might not be a must-win game or they're not worried or whatever. If they lose this game, it's not over type thing. And I'm thinking that's the worst mentality to have. Every game from here on out is must-win, according to myself, and I'm pretty sure Raj thinks the same thing. Al, how are you feeling about tomorrow's game being a must-win game?
I'll tell you what. I hate to be the contrarian, but I discussed this on my pod on Monday. Mathematically, and only because I guess my wife's a middle school math teacher. Mathematically, it's not. And thank the Giants for that, right? The Giants getting the win in Seattle helps out. If Seattle wins tomorrow night, they're 2.5 up on the Niners. They get Seattle again. The scary thing about it is, I was talking, you're looking the way the Niners are playing now. You look at the schedule. I don't know if there's a game that you feel super confident that if you had an extra $100 lying down around that you'd say that's a must win. That's a win. I'll take that, spread or not. But then you look at Seattle's schedule and it's for a third place team. It's not easy. So totally agree with Raj. Totally agree with you. I mean, you don't want to go 0-3 in the West. You don't want to go 0-3 in the conference. But it's the fact that this game is week 6 and not week 12, and, being 2.5 games back. Listen, I'm going to be rooting my ass off. Don't get me wrong, but not that someone's going to win the NFC West at 10-7, maybe even 9-8, the way it's looking. So not the end of the world, although it's going to feel like it if they lose.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. Like I said, because Kyle said it, Lynch said it, and Bosa was trying to reiterate that technically, mathematically, all the math wizards out there are probably telling me right now, Raj, we're not over yet if they don't win. Like, I get it, but even my daughter, who's great at math, she's like, well, technically, you do the math right, Dad. You guys, it's okay. I was like, look, if we don't win, I think mentally it'll be a tough loss just for this team because it's tough sledding. Like, they got the Chiefs, they got the Cowboys, and they got Baker after the bye week. Like, the schedule is tough, like you said, for both teams. The NFC West has a tough, matchup. Opponent list against everybody in the league. So I agree. I think a 10-7 record probably wins the NFC West the way it's looking right now. And as good as the Seattle started, they're starting to, tread downward. So that's a good thing. And they're kind of banged up. Niners are banged up, but Seattle's a little banged up too.
Last year, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, Seattle winds up beating Bo Nix week 1. Jacoby Brissett week 2, Skylar Thompson week 3, Lions beat him by 2 scores, and Daniel Jones without Malik Neighbors and Singletary had a really good game.
Yeah.
And, just goes to show where this season is for San Fran, feeling like 2020, but just the irony of the Niners get a field goal block return for a touchdown, lose. Giants get one and win. Like it just not feeling like it's their first third of the season by any means.
Absolutely.
What a difference a year makes, because the Niners started 5-0 and then lost 3 straight, and we were depressed Oh, I don't know, maybe Brock. I mean, I didn't really think that, but it was eye opening to lose 3 straight. But then they came out in that Jacksonville Jaguars game, and it was like they turned the switch. And all of a sudden they were back to being the team that we thought they were going to be. This year, I have zero confidence in that. I don't know what to expect. I have no idea what Niner team is going to come out from week to week. All I know for certain is that they're going to come out and they're going to fumble at least one phase of the big 3 that you have to at least have 2 to win. Offense, defense, special teams. They, for some reason, they cannot get all 3 on the same page in one game. And sometimes they even get one on the same page, and then the second half of the game, all of a sudden they can't, and all of a sudden the special teams becomes an issue once again. So I never thought that at week 2 and 4, it would be 2 and 4 if we lost. Week 6 would essentially be like a make or break game for the season for the 49ers. I talked about it in the offseason that it felt weird. I talked in the offseason that things were just a little off. But at the same time, like once the season started, I remember telling Raj in our first show after it happened, I said, I'm starting to get back into that old feeling. I think the Niners going to be just fine. They beat the Jets. It's Aaron Rodgers. Ever since that game, I have a really, really, really poor feeling about this team. And it sucks because, they have a really good roster. They have a good organizational guy in John Lynch and all that other stuff. But something about this year has felt off from jump. And it's every week it's kind of, it's restamping what my thought was going into the season, that there's just something different about this team. Maybe they're old, maybe they're quitting on Shanahan. We don't know. We don't know the reasons, but I don't know. I actually have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow night, to be honest with you.
You know what, Aaron? Winning fixes everything. If they win tomorrow, everybody's going to be happy. Everybody's going to be rah-rah. And this is the thing. The Niners, they've started slow many times. Obviously, last year they started hot, and they kind of went on their little stink, like you said. But the Niners are a team that can put together some runs together and maybe win some games. And we're like, oh, wow, here we go. So as long as they get some wins and they have a quality team, like I know they've got some injuries, CMC, the biggest one of all. But if they start putting together some wins here, that's all it takes. That's all you need is a little bit of a spark. Tomorrow could be that spark. Thursday night football, if you can't get up for this one and you're the Niners, then, it's going to be tough sledding. But Fred Warner said it yesterday. He says, we don't even need I don't need to give an elaborate speech like I've done in the past. He knows everybody's ready for this one. Seattle's going to be coming hungry because they just lost to New York, like Al said, without Neighbors. I mean, they're going to be mad. So both teams are going to be looking for a win. But if the 49ers could come out and get this victory, I think it could jumpstart a big run for this team. And, Seattle, they haven't played great quarterbacks in their wins. So Brock Purdy has a lot riding on this one too. If he could come out and smoke them out, they don't have Tariq Woolen. They're going to be without him. And I think one of their safeties is also questionable. So even if he plays, he's going to be dealing with some hamstring issues. So Brock Purdy, Brandon Ayuk kind of revved it up last week. I think they're in a good position to come on the road in the Emerald City and, steal a dub on the road. They're actually favorites. So it's not really like they're stealing anything.
It's, and I'm sure at this point, obviously Viking fans are feeling a lot better than Niner fans, right? 5-0, feeling good, but in any sport, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And we're doing this on a Wednesday. I live in New Jersey. Any Northeast people, I know there's a lot of Yankee fans and Met fans. Mets are in the NLCS. Mets are in the NLCS and had the worst beginning to their season. Looked like the whole Steve Cohen's going to blow it up. Got hot at the right time. So listen, when you say, Raj, you're right. It's going to be a season of runs. If they can put together two wins in a row here, 3 wins there, win 3 of their last 4 to end the season. I think Seattle's got, of their last 6 games, 4 of them are on the road, right? I mean, they got to, go to the Jets, which we'll see with the whole, Saleh not being there, how Ulbrich pulls that thing together. And maybe Saleh's going to come back next year. But it's certainly not how you start. It's how you finish. I don't understand how a team this talented for the past 2 out of the 3 years can start this slow.
Yeah.
But you just can't can't flip a switch. You just be, oh, now we're going to play. Like, because if that's the case, then the switch should be flipped on for every quarter of the past couple games. And that's not been the case. Once halftime comes, power out, switches off. And it's like, hey, 2 straight games, we're just going to turn the ball over our first offensive drive or on a kick return because we want you to get back into it. We're not comfortable being up by 2 scores.
Yeah, those second halves have been dreadful. I mean, the other teams have been making the adjustments. Niners haven't. But, you can't blame it all on injuries, but I feel like, Christian McCaffrey, it's a hard transition for Kyle and this team without him. I feel especially red zone. You got to realize 2 years in a row, this guy really changed the offense, the dynamic. Last year, they were perfect in the red zone pretty much. They were the best team in the red zone. This year, they don't have an identity there. And I think that's really frustrated them. The defense, they're not getting the pressure. Safety's an issue. Talanoa Hufanga now went on the injured reserve list. So all those issues, coming out the gates a little slow. So I can understand why they're having a little tough sledding. They have some issues going on. They're not the only team right now that you look at the record, you're like, wow, how are they, have a losing record? So it's the NFL. It's a weird season. Nobody would sit here and would have told you that the Vikings were going to be 5. And I couldn't have told you that. There's no way. But like you said, it's not how you start, how you finish. And I really feel like this team is going to finally put it together. And I don't know. It is weird. I think they do have a switch that they somehow flip at some point in the season, because it's happened so many times. I remember they were 3-5 a couple years ago. Remember rainy game against the Colts at Levi Stadium. I think I got pneumonia after that game because I went there and I was like, why did I go to that game? I was sick. We were 3-5. I was like, oh man, it's a rough season. And then we go out on a run and somehow make it to the NFC Championship game that year. So not too worried yet. I think what you were saying earlier kind of is true. It's not necessarily the end of the world if they win, but still, in my mind, it is a must-win game.
And go ahead, Aaron. Sorry,
I cut Kyle Shanahan no slack, Raj.
Okay.
I don't care if he's having to deal with not having Christian McCaffrey. You've known about this since the beginning of training camp. This has been at least 2 months now. So I don't have any sympathy for Kyle and how you have enough playmakers on that offense. I'm so sorry. You have Kittle, you have Debo, you have Ayuk, you have Jennings, and possibly if they ever decide to take him off of, IR or whatever he's on right now with, his name is escaping me.
Oh,
Pearsall. Like I can't get in line. I know you're a positive guy, but like I've lost any sympathy for any excuses that any of these players want to talk about, whether it's weather, whether it's injuries. They got a deep enough team. They shouldn't have these problems. The second question I was going to ask you guys, and it's funny that we're talking about Kyle, was this is what I was going to ask you guys. Has this team jumped the shark with Kyle? Have we gone as far as we're going to go with the Kyle Shanahan-led 49ers? Is this kind of a make or break season? Because we've gotten as far as 2 Super Bowls and 2 losses, right? Had multiple championship games. Have they tuned them out? Has this team kind of reached its summit? Does this team need to be reworked? Like, I want to know how you guys feel about that, because I'm not quite there yet. I'm not saying that they need to reboot, because there's still a lot of young players on this team, but there is some guys that are aging. But it's almost a 7-year span. Do players tune guys out? Do players become kind of whatever with coaches? And can a team just jump the shark and no longer go any farther than where they've been? I would like to know what you guys think.
I think, as Niner fans, we're very similar to Yankee fans and being kind of a bit spoiled, and it's like right to championships, dominating the 80s, 90s, getting there in the late 90s, the NFC Championship game, losing to Green Bay. And then obviously in the 2010s, what's been going on outside of 2017, 18, and 2020 with the injuries, they've been a consistently great team. And the 2 Super Bowl losses, as difficult as they were and nauseating in a way, 10-point lead blown with 6.5 to go in the first Super Bowl. And there's a 10-point lead in the second quarter, which is, there's so much time left. I mean, what are you going to do there? But to lose 2 Super Bowls to the greatest quarterback of this generation isn't the worst thing in the world. At some point, Mahomes is going to break through. The Rams championship game, they're a Jaworski Tart dropped pick from maybe going there and beating Cincinnati, who they beat earlier in the season. This season, they're a Ronnie Bell drop and a Mason fumble away from maybe being 4-1. So, Kyle's overseeing the operation with obviously Lynch on top of him as a GM, but I think we can only put so much blame on him for player mistakes, very untimely turnovers and things that are happening. in terms of the, should something be shaken up? Absolutely. And after the season, it's going to have to be, people are going to be gone. Like Hufunga's probably going to be gone. Greenlaw's probably going to be gone. There's going to be salary cap moves that are going to cause a shakeup of this team, new players in, new draft picks, and maybe that's the shakeup that they're going to need. But if someone's going to say, I'll fire everybody, bring in Ben Johnson, Kyle Shanahan gets fired 10 minutes later, he's going to have a job, right? Like it's
no doubt.
This is a really well-run organization. They haven't gotten over the hump. They haven't gotten over the Mahomes hump, but not many teams in the NFL have. And that's not, it sucks for us, but I can kind of live with that in a way.
Yeah. And in a sense, they're competitive every year, like perennial contenders. I think it's frustrating because we all, as Niner fans, want to see them win a championship. It's like, dude, we're so close. You choke it, you blow it, whatever the case is. Everybody puts that on Kyle because he's the head honcho. And I get that. And he does, deserve some credit for those losses and stuff. But this year, I feel a lot of it's just personnel. But, starts with the top. They're the guys that are getting these players,
Yep.
Lynch and Shanahan and stuff. So, yeah, they should take some onus. But, it's personnel. Like Devondre Campbell, that guy, you throw against him, he's going to allow a catch. He's not playing good. Yachtim, he's playing pretty poorly. He had a decent game last game. The fumbles, the turnovers, the Ronnie Bell massacre, all those things happen, but they're on your team, and it's unfortunate, but those are the guys that you brought in. So I feel like it's not just on the coaches and the person and the front office, but players should take a little flack for screwing up. Brock Purdy didn't have a great game last week. I love Brock, but got to keep it 100. He probably had one of his worst games. Trying to do a little too much with the game, maybe try to compensate for no CMC. But at the end of the day, they've had chances to win all those games. Like you said, it could be 4-1 right now, honestly. It's kind of crazy. But the NFL, it's sometimes you win games because of luck or bad way, something goes bad the other team's way, and, a little injury here and there. Something might go your way, but right now nothing's going the Niners' way in these games. They're melting down. So it's just a weird, NFL's weird, little inch here, a bad special teams play here, a crazy, weird turnover here, a tip ball here. That's the breaks. But normally the Niners get those breaks and they win those games, but right now they're not. And I feel everybody's frustrated, so they got to throw it on somebody. So they dump it on Kyle. They dump it on Sorensen, which jury's still out on Sorensen. But that right there, I think, is another reason why people are mad at Kyle is, okay, you got rid of your DC from last year. He said he wasn't good enough. Now you got a new guy, and he's making, a bad name for himself based on how the defense is playing. So people are a little frustrated. Like, oh, you got rid of one guy. Your next guy now is not doing good. So I feel like there's a little tension there. I think people are starting to get sour on Kyle in terms of the fan base. I don't think the players do. I think they all love Kyle, but I think the fans are a little sour because it's like, okay, 8 years, like Aaron said, where's our championship? We're used to it. Like you said, we're the Yankees. We have high standards. We won 5 times Super Bowl champions. Where's our Super Bowl?
It's been 30 years, man. And, 7 years is a long time for a coach who hasn't won a Super Bowl. And I'm not saying, there's a lot of people that are saying, get him out of town, go, get him, put him at the next bus stop out of here. Like, my whole thing is, I feel personally, this is just my opinion, this team, like most human beings, when you get paid, you get fat and happy. I feel like there's a little bit, the hunger and the effort and the enthusiasm, there's just something missing this year with this team, and I can't put my finger on it. I don't know if it's people becoming complacent because they got paid and everything's great and fine in San Francisco. Something's off this year when I listen to guys talk, when I watch games. I don't know, man. I don't know what it is for me. I'm a person who reads into people's personalities. I'm a good people person as far as like reading people. And you couldn't, if you put a gun to my head, I couldn't tell you what's going on with this team this year. But there's something's off for sure. I
think we talked last time we were on about the fat and happy players getting paid or not having that hunger. And it's funny, as you were talking about it now, I'm relating it to like Rocky III. If the Niners won a Super Bowl and then the next 2 seasons they just stunk, it's like, all right, well, we got our Super Bowl. We're really great. We're believing the press clippings, and we're just gonna take a tank. but this team has always answered the bell and gotten up in, 2020 they were injured, but 2021, 2022, 2023, being competitive. So we'll just keep on the Rocky theme. They still, I think, have like that eye of the tiger. The hunger should be there because they haven't finished the job. If we want to call this, more, emotionally drained, physically drained because they're playing so long into each season.
Over 60 games in the last 3 seasons.
Yeah. I mean, I can get behind that. They're also bringing in like rookies who haven't played that much and free agents from teams that aren't as good and haven't played as much. So there's still like a mix of kind of, fresh legs. Salas started off slow in terms of DC. D'Amico Ryan started off slow. Wilkes actually started off kind of okay with 5-0. No one was saying anything. And then people jumped on him. So the Sorensen thing is in line with how this team progresses from the beginning of the season to middle to end. So there's still just too much talent on the team to think that this is going to progress. They're not going to lose their next 12 games, of course. I think their ceiling is 10 wins. I think that's what they're going to absolutely max out at. Not that they're going to get there, but that's what their ceiling is going to be. And the individual players collectively are greater than the whole. When this collection of talent, offensively and defensively, comes together, it should enhance every individual position or position player's skill set and coalesce. It hasn't happened yet. If the Seahawk game is that game where it clicks, or to Raj's point, the light goes on and everybody starts playing as a solid unit, then they can get on a little bit of a run. Even Kansas City next week. I mean, they're banged up to high heaven in terms of like they were running 4 tight ends on Monday night against the Saints, like because they have no wide receivers. So once the
and
talent,
they still won.
Yeah, I mean, once the play on the field matches the names on the back of the jerseys, they'll be in better shape. It's just odd that it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, dude, this is a team. I feel like I said, they're just waiting for that perfect storm. Usually they have this team that you're just like, they're bullying everybody. And I feel like right now they're getting bullied. I think a lot of it though has to do with, they've been going to big championship games. They've been winning games, NFC championship. It takes a toll. I think they're hungry. I don't think that they're not hungry, but Debo said it in the offseason. It's hard to get back there. It took us 4 years after 2019. Like this team knows it takes a lot. Mentally, I just think they're tired right now. They've been through 18 games or 20 games, 21 games, 20 games. Like every year, despite the slow starts, they have to dig deep, get down, make a run. It takes a toll. And Sorensen, he's off to a slow start. D'Amico, it took him a little while to get the engine revving. Took Salah a little time to get the engine revving, but once they got it figured out, they were great, and the defense was humming. But it took a little time, and he's an inexperienced DC. So I'm gonna give him the benefit of doubt. But again, they got to start putting together some wins. Maybe they could be the team that gives the Chiefs their first loss, next week, and that would be a huge momentum, shifter. But
they would shut me up for a while.
First, it would shut up a lot of people. But they got to take care of business this week. They can't be looking ahead. They get a mini bye week after this, but the Chiefs are actually on a bye, so they won't even be more rested. So it is what it is. NFL's tough. It's a long season. I think mentally they're still recovering from. It's a tough loss in the Super Bowl.
See, to me, one thing that a lot of people like, there's a little bit of. I noticed this. It was a clip. They asked Diamador Lenore, about the loss, and instead of being a pro and giving credit to the opponent, he essentially said that they lucked up and beat the Niners. And I'm going to ask the question that I saw with the tweet right under it. There was a person that said, "Where are the team captains right now, squashing that kind of mindset of like people are getting lucky and beating us?" That's the kind of I don't want to hear that kind of mindset after a loss that they lucked themselves into. No, it was your shitty effort and your lackadaisical attention to details is why we lost. Not because you got lucky, another team got lucky. I that to me, if there's one thing I can't stand is when people don't look within themselves and retrospectively say, you know what, could have been better. Now, to be fair, Demo's been the best player on this team and on this defense. No cap, as they would say. So I'm not going to get too mad at him, but that kind of mindset of like, they got lucky. I don't want to hear that. To me, that's just disheartening. And where are the team captains telling people to shut their ass up and don't talk like that and just, be a professional, give the credit to the opponent, and move on. So that really made me mad when I saw that. I was like, wow, really? That's how you're going to go about it?
Well, I'm with you. I mean, you can think that, and you can even say that in the locker room, if you truly believe it. And they beat the Ram game again, the Ronnie Bell, drop, Moody missing a 55-yarder, although that's like a coin flip type thing. The Cardinal game, the interceptions, they lose the turnover battle 3-1. They lose Moody. Are we going to actually sit here and say that if Jake Moody plays that game, do they win it? They probably do. Right?
Yeah, they do.
So, there is an element of luck.
I thought I'd say that.
Good luck for the Cardinals, bad luck for the Niners that are happening. But I think the thing that's more distressing is, even if you want to say, oh, the Rams got lucky and the Cardinals got lucky down the stretch or with certain things, yeah, you beat yourself. And 2, you should have frog stomped these teams when you were up by 2 scores. So luck could play a part of it, but where was the killer mentality when the Rams had no receivers, no tight end, no corner, no safety, and Arizona is just outclassed talent-wise? So yeah, a team can get lucky in moments, in spurts, but for the full 60 minutes, you should have crushed them in both games and covered spreads handily, and you didn't.
Yeah, they got to close out. That's 100%. That's it. Bottom line.
Yeah, they say all the right things. They say all the right things about we need to close out. We need to close out. We need to close out. But they still haven't figured out a way. They lost in the Super Bowl and previous games and other seasons. The Niners under Kyle Shanahan, when it gets close at the end, 9 times out of 10, because for whatever reason, pressure affects people different ways. I could never be a professional football player and go and play in Seattle. My nerves would be shot. It's just you got to be a special kind of person to be that. Maybe they don't got the dogs on this roster that can make plays in crunch time in a Super Bowl to win a Super Bowl. Maybe Brock might be that guy, but maybe other guys around him, like Debo never stepped up and did anything in the Super Bowl. Brandon Ayuk didn't do anything in the Super Bowl. He got locked down too. So I don't know. Complacency when you haven't won it and you've been a runner-up multiple years, to have that kind of attitude that, somebody got lucky, to me, that's a loser mentality. That's why you don't finish games. That's why you don't beat the Chiefs. It's that kind of thinking. Like that interview that they had with Debo and Ayuk, and they were saying, we've been the best team. No, you haven't. You've been Kansas City's bitch for 4 years. What are you talking about? You haven't been the best team. You've been the best team in the NFC, maybe. But to say that we've been the top dogs and people, and then, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, that to me is just asinine.
Yeah. Best roster and best team are 2 different things, right?
What's that?
Best roster and best team are 2 different things.
Oh, the Niners top to bottom, when they're healthy, you have probably the best top 3 roster in the NFL. Yeah. But that doesn't mean jack squat, because you could have.
You got to put on paper. You could be paper champions all you want, but you got to put it together. But that's it. They get so far, and then whatever happens, they defeat themselves. I agree with you. I don't like that. Demo said it was luck, this and that. I mean, there were probably some stretches where Cardinals did get lucky. Like nobody would have accounted for Hufanga going down, and all of a sudden Jake Moody going down, like you said. But those are the breaks. NFL happens. Cardinals had some issues too with their team, and that's the NFL. You can't say luck's involved. Luck's always going to be part of the NFL. But bottom line, they blew it. They made some bad plays, turnovers. Brock Purdy's pick, the fumble near the goal line by Jordan Mason. Just bad plays. You got to be able to figure it out. And like you said, Aaron, they got to be able to close it out because they've had these games. Even against the Vikings, like they could have won that game. There was some bad plays that they messed up on. They mucked up, and they had some weird, just some weird things happen in that game. You're like, oh my God. Despite all that, they were close enough to win that game. Just, they couldn't put together. Though those fourth quarter meltdowns have been happening too much this year. And I don't know, a lot of it to me just thinks maybe it's just a lack of focus, just because maybe, again, I think they're tired from all these years of success. It catches up, but it's not easy to keep winning and getting all the way to the end. And as much as I hated them, the Patriots, I mean, that's incredible what they did. They were always winning, the division, always make it to the playoffs, always make it to the Super Bowl. It's like, damn, man, how did that?
The Niners of the late 80s and early 90s, every single year they were up there.
Used to piss everybody else off, but
they should have been tired too. They should have been beat too, but they weren't. Did they lose to the Cowboys 2 out of 3 years? Yeah, but they were up there every single freaking year, and they had
Niners are up there every year too, though. We get up
Huh?
there, and then the Niners have been beating the Cowboys. They get there every year. It's just, they're not finishing it in the big moment and in the Super Bowl. Again, we're all wondering why they can't. And I think again, the big key here is they can start a run tomorrow. They got to win. This is a big conference game or a division game. Seattle. Again, both teams banged up. I don't know. I think that the 49ers, as long as they get back to what works, run the ball, give Jordan Mason maybe 20 carries because he didn't have that many last week. I think he had like 14. So he needs to run the ball. They need to be able to control that time position and just get down. And once you're in the red zone, figure out a way. I want to see some creative plays. I haven't seen them get creative, maybe give the ball to Debo a little bit more. Maybe give the ball to Kittle a little bit more on some, over the middle type plays. Whatever you got to do, Kyle, that's what they got to do.
Pterodome, I'm 100% on you on this one. We get relevant trophies. We're relevant. Yeah. We're up there every year. We never win it, but we're up there every year. Like, that's such, oh my God. If you'd go back in time and tell the 80s teams that, like, it's okay if you don't win. You get to the championship game, it's good enough. Fan base is okay with that. Are you kidding me? Like, that just drives me insane. So, Pterodome, I like that comment. I know you're being facetious. So, there was a soundbite today that I heard from Brian Baldinger. I'm sorry, I'm a little fired up today, man. I'm pissed from that guy. Sunday, I flipped out watching that game. I was cursing. I tried to break my TV control. I whipped it across the room. I was hot. That Bosa, where he's kind of just standing there in the heat, that like aw shucks look that Bosa gives, his lack of energy press conferences. I was like, oh my God, get off my television right now. I don't want to see you. I was so mad. Still mad. But here's Brian Baldinger saying that the 49ers essentially are too old, and then I'll hit you guys up with questions.
Baldy, forget last year. I don't want to hear about last year. The film this year, we're almost a third of the way through. They got their 6th game this Thursday. Finish the sentence. The identity of the 2024 49ers is what?
Slow. They just look slow, Joe. They look like a slow team. Like, I don't see speed. I just don't see, like, it just, the whole operation, the pass rush, the receiver, they just look like a slow team to me. Now, look, when you're 2-3, nothing feels good, and you start using superlatives like I'm doing. But if I'm finishing a sentence, that's what it looks like to me. And that's your team, though. Like, that's what it looks like to me.
Slow. So how do they get faster? How do they get quicker?
I said to him, to Bonte yesterday, I go, they look really old.
Yeah,
and Bonte's like, how can they be old? Like, they were just in this, and I agree with him, like they were just in the Super Bowl, but they look really old and a step slower.
No doubt it looks a step slower, but you look at these red zone walls and you look, the way they've blown these games, they were in total control of the LA Rams game. Total control.
Until they weren't.
And then all of a sudden, a punt return comes back and Ronnie Bell drops a pass. Like, wait a minute, you lost to the Rams who had nobody out there. And in Arizona, we're laughing because we see the injury report like, boy, this should be a layup. They got nobody playing in this one. And then all of a sudden in the fourth quarter, you can kind of just start to see the momentum shift and shift and shift. So how do they become quicker? Because there's not some magic trade out there that's going to make them faster, Baldy. Or is this maybe a sign of things that come this year?
Well, I mean, look, 2 weeks in a row, you've been up double digits in the second half, and you can't finish. Now, but that's an execution thing. That's just execution. So, I mean, they're always, and as a coach, I'm sure Kyle and John Lynch and the whole group, they're just saying it's execution, it's execution. But they're not getting big plays outside of Fred Warner. A couple of big plays defensively. Nick gets himself an interception, a really good read by Nick to make that play, but they're not getting the big plays the way Arizona just got on Sunday.
Yeah.
50-yard touchdown run. They're not getting those type of plays right now.
All right. So I love Raj's positivity, and I think it's infecting me. So I'm going to start, with agreeing with Brian Baldinger, at least from this standpoint. Even though this team, I think they're leading the NFL, or they're top 3 in explosive plays, right? Passes of 20 yards or more, runs of 10 yards or more. But when you watch them and you compare them to other teams, doesn't it just feel like other teams feel more explosive. You watch the Commanders, and they have nobody outside of McLaurin and Jaden Daniels, but they feel more explosive. And just take Daniels' runs off the table. Deep shots, 50-yard touchdowns. And Brock's been pushing the ball down the field. They don't have that finisher on offense where a drive's going to be 3 plays and it's going to be a touchdown. Maybe McCaffrey can pop one when he comes back. We've heard a lot about Guarendo's speed, but he hasn't really been doing anything.
Looks like he's in quicksand when he's running.
Yeah, you want more speed on the field? Where's Cowing? How come he can't learn this offense? But I guarantee you Andy Reid or Sean McVay would have him out there.
They would have him out there, yeah. I know he had his shoulder banged up a little bit.
Shoulder was banged up, yeah. He wasn't.
His brain is banged up because he can't remember plays or something. I don't know.
How complex could this offense be? You're going to get Pearsall back. But yeah, Debo's not a burner. Ayuk's not a burner. Kittle's 30. They don't play any other tight ends. Mason's not a burner. I mean, Brock is second in the league in passing. Mason's second in the league in rushing. I don't know if Jennings is still like top 7 in receiving after that one huge game. They have enough weapons to score in the second half against Arizona, which they didn't. And let's remember, they only scored 17 points offensively. 7 was on, 16 points. 7 was on the field goal return block. You can't score 16 points on a bottom third defense with this roster, CMC or no C. Even if they didn't have Debo or Ayuk or both, they shouldn't be scoring only 16 offensive points against Arizona.
I agree. Well, not only that, but a couple of weeks ago when Fred Warner had the pick 6, that was a touchdown that they were able to get, and they didn't score that on offense. And again, it's a lot of field goals. That's why there's a lot of pressure on the new kicker, Matthew Price, because Jake Moody was scoring a lot of their points. And again, I think a lot of it goes back to CMC, because this team does look slow, not just offensively, but defensively. I'll get there. But offensively, 100%. They don't have guys that are separating. I saw the charts, in terms of like separating, these guys are kind of near the bottom of the charts. And I think, Brandon, you said it a couple weeks ago, teams are playing them a little differently. They're playing man, because in the Super Bowl, you saw them, they couldn't separate against man coverage. You put them in a zone, they're going to find the open space, and they're going to beat that zone most of the time, right? And that's what teams are seeing is like, we're going to man up on these guys. They're not going to be able to beat us and separate, Ayuk's a great separator. He's good at finishing his routes, but sometimes his routes take a little time. Jennings is not going to beat you on, crazy routes. Debo, he's a slant and go guy. He's not going to beat you on a very sophisticated route. So teams know that. I think that is a part of it. And Mason, I love him. He's tearing it up this year, but biggest run was 34 yards, which is great, but we haven't seen that big, oh my God, home run. I guarantee you if CMC was in there, that 34-yarder we saw the other day probably would have been a 74-yarder touchdown. That's the kind of explosiveness we're missing, and I think that's really affected this offense. So I agree with you guys. And Kittle, I love him, but he's getting closer to my age, and that's not a good thing. So
and Trent's getting closer to mine. I'm 44.
Exactly. It's not good.
He's on the wrong side of 30.
Yeah, he really is. And the big thing is on defense, you can't be slow on defense, because this league, as you said, there's so many explosive players. And if our defense isn't able to keep up with that speed, they're going to get blown away. And I mean, the safeties, they look like they're running through quicksand. I mean, Jair Brown hasn't taken that step. He looks like he's too much of a box safety. And I feel like all their safeties are more box safeties. They don't have that free safety, that coverage guy. When we used to have Gibson, he was great because he can sit back there and he was great at coverage. We're missing that. One thing we talked about in the offseason was go get Isaiah Simmons, go get a good coverage safety. And now they're kind of lacking that with Hufanga also now on the injury reserve list. They're looking for, I think Adrian Amos is among guys they're looking at today. They reported. So definitely something they're looking for, get some speed. Cornerbacks are not looking fast. And then the linebackers, as we talked about earlier, Campbell, holy moly, that guy is running.
Campbell and Yidom, too, are the two biggest liabilities on the defense. If they would just get a pass rush, it's people are like, oh, Bosa's like, this is the thing with Bosa. Bosa is a flashy player. He makes splash plays, but on a consistent down in and down out, I would take Myles Garrett any day of the week, because Myles Garrett
he hasn't played good this year, though. I mean, he's great.
Okay, for the first time ever, like he's always been a consistently better play in and play out pass rusher than Bosa. Bosa is a really good player, but like they're not getting near the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane. I don't care who your safeties are. I don't care who your corners are. You could have Deion Sanders. Well, maybe Deion. Any other corner back there. And if you have them running for 5 to 7 seconds, there's a good chance they're probably going to get open, especially if you're playing zone behind it. and guys are literally just sitting in a zone or waiting to go through a zone to open it up on the other side. Like, to me, a lot of it is, some of it is age, some of it is coaching, and some of it is just garbage effort, lackadaisical. I think the coaching from our new defensive coordinator, I still don't understand. You get the guy that you supposedly wanted, the players wanted, right? Because Wilkes wasn't the guy. We threw him under the bus and blamed the Super Bowl loss on him. Rightfully so, maybe. I don't know. And now you have your guy or guys, and you suck even worse. So what's the problem? I don't understand. Like, you got your within the organization, dude, because we don't want to ruffle any feathers and have us run a different defense. God forbid we show the league something different, offensive and defensively. We're the same team for the last 7 years. We won the same offense, the same defense. Nothing changes. Nothing evolves. It's after a while, teams start to figure that crap out. And I don't know. I'm pissed.
No, listen, you put a couple things, because there's a lot of good things to unpack there. I agree with you with Bosa. As good of a player, excellent of a player he is, defensive player of the year, he is not consistently a game wrecker the way that Garrett is, or Bruce Smith was, or Reggie Wade. And I know those
TJ
are
Watt.
And it's unfair to compare, but he is not. I wouldn't say he's not a game wrecker. You have to game plan for him, but he's not a game wrecker. The Sorensen hire, it was the safe hire, right? Like, they're not going outside the organization. But I maintain, not that I maintain, I'm going to say this for the first time. I think I said it on my show on Monday. If Kyle wasn't the offensive play caller, he's so reticent to play rookies unless he has to. Like, they had to play Puny. Feliciano and Burford were hurt, and he ran with it. That's great. But if Kyle was only the head coach, do we really think he'd be turning over play calling duties any year to a rookie offensive play caller? There's no way. And what Sorensen, where he was disappointing against Arizona, was I didn't see a 5-man line until the 2-minute warning, right? Yeah. And you knew Arizona was going to run, because they're going to take 3 runs, stay in field goal range, go up by 1, and say, all right, San Fran, get as close as you need to for Wisnowski. And then blitzing too, right? He might have sent 5, but the only heavy pressure blitz he sent was on that 4th down where Murray lofted it out to Marvin Harrison. And, Yadam that was the only catch that Yadam let up all game. But I would still think, if you're sending 6 or 7, you'd want Ward on him instead of your number 2, number 3 corner. But where's the pressure? If we're working under the assumption that maybe the defense is a little bit slow when Campbell's on the field, even when Hufunga's on the field, he's a heat-seeking missile, but he's reckless. And he can't cover. And he has a knack for big plays, but it's totally risk-reward. Why isn't this physical bully ball team not pushing the issue a little bit more like Minnesota does? Minnesota doesn't have the players, but they come at you in waves. They
right at you.
Beat them. They have so much talent that they should be exerting their will, not all game. That would be crazy, right? But in stretches, just flex and just. But they don't do that. It's bend but don't break. And they're always going to break against good quarterbacks. Good quarterbacks are going to break this defense, which is why they always do. Stafford couldn't beat Murray and can't beat Mahomes.
They couldn't beat Mahomes, and 100%. And the thing is, I think Sorensen definitely was a safe hire. I think he wasn't their first pick. I think 100% they were looking for Spags. Right? There was the reports saying, hey, they looked into. If you can't beat the damn man, go get him on your roster and say, hey, Spags, come here. He's like, no, I get paid a lot of money to go to the Chiefs and probably win another Super Bowl. And then he looked for Obridge, like the guy that's now the coach for the Jets. He looked into him, I think now that everything's played out, maybe Jeff was like, hey, I kind of have a chance here.
I stayed in the right place.
Yeah, I stayed in the right place because now he's an interim coach. Maybe he knew Salah was kind of on the hot seat. I think there might be more to that story. And then we all heard the Bill Belichick, right? He was calling up Belly. And Belly's right now, he's with his 24-year-old girlfriend, living his life. He's enjoying it.
Man.
Unbelievable.
He's enjoying it. So I think Sorensen was maybe 4th, 5th down the line. And, of course, they're going to spin it as, he's the homegrown pick. He's the safe internal hire, whatever. He's your 4th, 5th pick. It is what it is. You fired a coach. You had to figure it out, and that was your last-ditch effort. And then they brought in Staley, but the fans wouldn't have liked it if he was the DC. So you had to kind of do it that way, right? So it was weird. But I also think Bosa, love the guy. I feel like he gets a lot of flack because he gets a high contract. He's not imposing his will sometimes. Although I feel like, man, he gets held. He gets chipped. Everything on his side is like you could tell he's frustrated.
There's a lot of guys that get held and triple team too, and
he doesn't have any help on the other side. Like there's literally they went in and brought Leonard Floyd this season. Where's he been? Right. It's like a ghost of Leonard Floyd. We were all sitting here saying, "Oh my God, he's got 10 sacks every year." I don't even think he has 10 pressures this year yet. So I mean, he's not getting the help. Every time they go out there and they get this high-profile guy to help Bosa,
it never works.
Do nothing. D4, Yetur Gross-Matos, he's on the injured reserve list.
Chase Young, he had like one good game.
So I feel like yes, Bosa gets he kind of gets a bad rap. Like yes, he should be taking over games. I know he's the man, but he's never really had help. Every time they say they're going to get him help, he's not getting help. Hargrave's hurt. That whole D line is just ravaged. And I don't know, ever since that 2019 D-line, it's never been like that top-tier form we've wanted. But, yeah, Bosa does have to kind of impose his will. I want to see more pressures. Like, on that fourth down play, you allow that – I was so sick when I was like, oh, my God, I can't believe it.
I thought the game was over. I went from being really mad to like, there it goes. And I knew it was over.
My emotions were like this because Mason fumbled. They come down. I'm like, okay, we got him on fourth down.
I was super mad.
And I was like,
the thing that gets me is you have Bosa talking about, well, we study up for something, and then in the game they show us different things and we don't adjust and blah blah blah. It's like, how is that possible? How is that possible in the national?
I think he's calling out Sorensen.
But that's who you wanted, because you're a bunch of whiny ass players who want in-house hires so they don't change the defense on you. God forbid you run something different, because it's not like what you've been running has gotten you a championship. That
maybe all the players didn't want him. I don't know. There you go.
Like people are like, oh, the Seattle defense. If it's run right, it can be hard to beat. Yeah, well, you know what? The only team that ran that Seattle defense the right way was the Seattle Seahawks when they had the Legion of Boom.
Yeah,
I am so sick and tired of hearing about this Seattle and how they do things and how the Niners are trying. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Good quarterbacks, like you said, when it comes to zone defense, they eat that alive, man. Yeah. And they always do against this team. Enough. Teddy, I'm sorry you're in here while I'm flipping out. It's been a long time. I hope you're doing good. Can't wait to see you hopefully in the future.
Well, and remember, and too, I just wanted to jump in when Bosa made that comment about adjustments. It's a quasi damning statement, but it's not just of Sorensen. It's of Staley also, right? Staley was an option. Sorensen was an option. They got both. So you thought, okay, you got the green kid. You got the person who was a D coordinator for only 1 year, although was number one with the Rams, got a Super Bowl, whatever. So now you have two minds that should be collaborating, halftime adjustments, pregame, whatever, to stop whatever a team's throwing at them. And they're not doing it. And they need to stop, or Kyle's mentality of this is twofold. Should not be living off of reputation from a D-line that hasn't been dominant in a couple of years, right? 2019 was a long time ago. And as great as that D-line was in terms of sacks, same number of sacks as Steve Wilkes' defense last year, right? It's just the pressure idea of 2019. Every game you watched, you felt like the pocket was collapsing almost every passing play. Yeah. You're not feeling that now, right? And it's so what you said, Aaron, and I think what we all agree with, the cover three is great. They have a lot of skill players. Seattle ran it better than probably any team ever will. That was a once-in-a-generation type of defense.
Yep.
But Kyle, let's not look at what gave you problems 7 or 8 years ago. Let's look at what's giving you problems now. And it's what Minnesota's running. It's what Cleveland and Jim Schwartz ran. Maybe that's what you should be employing in the future, not something that might be, I'll use air quotes here, a little outdated, and what teams can be, especially the better teams, the deeper you get into the playoffs.
What's the old saying? You either, what is it? Adapt or what? Adapt or die, adapt or get left behind. I feel like this 49ers team, offensively and defensively, they haven't adapted. They haven't grown. They haven't changed. There's no new wrinkles. Like the fact that we're 7 years in and still we keep drafting these guys that are supposedly explosive, but Kyle can't figure out a freaking way to ever get a guy with some speed on the field to at least tease a defense to thinking, you know what? They have 17 4-7 guys that can't get open, but are really good after the catch. They're strong. They're big. They're tough. Why not have one guy who's a one-trick pony that what he does is he runs straight and you throw it to him and he's fast? I don't understand how, no matter who they draft, they can't get him on the field ever. How is that the player's fault? I think that's a coaching problem more than the player. You can't dial up 6, 10, 12 plays for a player, get him on the field, take him off. I don't get it. To me, that's asinine.
And Kyle's wanted a McCaffrey running back for a while, right? McKinnon got hurt. That was unfortunate.
And he run him into the ground.
McCaffrey. But then why do you, if you like that type of running back, right? And you knew trading for McCaffrey that he had injury issues. Nobody saw the dual Achilles thing coming. That's unfortunate. But why are you drafting a Trey Sermon? Why are you drafting a Ty Davis Price? That is the exact opposite of a back that you want, Kyle. And then you come back with Isaac Rendo, who only started for what a year at Louisville, and it's not a dual threat back. So it's nice. You want some variety. You have a multi-purpose back. You have a thumper in Mason. You have a speed back in Garendo, and then you have a nobody in Patrick Taylor because he can't see the field. Why not double down on what you want to do? Like in terms of like the versatility, they're trying to get burners on the field, but Cowan can't get on the field. As well as they draft in later rounds and undrafted free agents, the top 3 rounds have been absolutely abysmal.
Other than Fred Warner. Yeah. But yeah, for the most part, they kind of have some clunkers in those early rounds. You know, there's some good ones, obviously. What
do you guys think about the Saleh not being out of New York? How many of you, or how many tweets have you seen, Raj? Because you have a really active Twitter and Instagram. Bring back Saleh.
I was probably one of the first people.
You were probably the one guy.
My tweet's still getting engagement from. I was like, "Yo, bring back Saleh." I think it got like 7K likes. So obviously, the moment that news dropped, like, because I remember I woke up.
I felt the same thing too.
I remember I wake up, boom, breaking news, the kicker. Literally 2 seconds later, I was like, "Well, there goes that." That overshadowed anything the day, like especially in the East Coast. I mean, you're out there, so you know. Jets media, East Coast media is crazy. So as soon as that dropped, everybody was like, oh my God, Niner fans, especially what we've been talking about with Sorensen and everything like that. Niner fans, he can fix us. He's got the energy. He's the guy. It was insane. And people are still talking about it. And I know, Salah made a statement today, and Mike Silver yesterday talked about it, how he's going to take a little vacation. And I would too. I saw a report. He's going to get paid $20,000 a day until, the money catches up to whatever they owe him, $10 million. I'd be taking a vacation too. I don't blame him. Take whatever time I'm going to take, go relax, and figure out on the next coaching cycle where I'm going to go. He's going to get so many DC jobs anywhere around the league because, his defense was so good. Despite his, non-winning record, the offense could never take off. He's not an offensive guy, so it makes sense. But he is a great defensive coach. I hope the 49ers can bring him back next year, whatever happens this year. But he's going to get a job like that.
See, the thing with bringing them back next year, it means that they're just going right back to the well again of the same type of defense.
Well,
they're not learning.
He made the system.
Right. And they have the players that he would work well with.
He has the guy. He's the guy that kind of like set the blueprint out. So you have the Sorensen who coached under him. Like, you're getting all these disciples of him when he's the guy that had the defense. Mm-hmm. But I also think that I'm pretty sure John Lynch and Kyle called him up. They said they did. I guarantee you they asked him, "Yo, you want to come?" I guarantee you they asked him that, and he says, "Hey, not right now. He needs some time to." I don't
fire that Sorensen bitch real quick.
Listen, I would be
he looks like he belongs making crystal meth in his basement anyway. So go right ahead.
Listen, I think everyone feels the same way. Like, if at the end of the season it doesn't go the way listen, and it's proven that the Niners can get to the Super Bowl and lose, and they could fire a defensive coordinator. If they won that Super Bowl, they might have fired Steve Wilkes, unless he didn't do that stupid, 2nd and 15 in overtime, having people 20 yards off the ball, doing some nonsensical stuff. But I think what's underrated here is with Saleh is the motivational ability, right? Like, we're not seeing that out of Sorensen. How many times when he was the DC did you see the camera go to him like he was having a seizure? He was so excited and firing up the players and chest bumping. That's got to, I never played organized football ever at any level, but that's got to count for something, especially when you have an energy drain or injuries or you're depleted or a team's running on you, to have not only the play calls, but someone that you can get you back into it. That's a big part of it. Like, Mike Singletary was a good motivational guy as a coach, but he was an X and O's guy. And that's not what you need.
Some guys are just DCs and OCs, and they're better at those jobs. Like, if somebody said in the comments, McDaniel left too early, probably,
Yeah.
Like some people are not leaders of men, and some people are leaders of men, but they can't. They don't know X's and O's. Kind of like
Right.
Singletary. Singletary, you'd run through a wall for, but he don't know nothing. He's the one guy that said that quarterbacks weren't important. I mean, really? That's what you really believe? So, to me, I'm at a point right now, like, I want to see some fired up players on the sideline. I want to see the team captains. I want to see people together, people getting bitched out for poor play. I want to see some energy, some enthusiasm, press conferences, be pissed, like, be mad. I don't understand this.
I think that's Sorensen. He's just a chill guy. He looks like a surfer. He just looks like he's just gonna, just ride the wave. He kind of looks.
See, that's
chill.
what I'm a New Yorker. I'm impatient. I've spent 7 years, bro. I'm ready to jump. No, I'm not going to jump shit. But
it's fair to say. But so who's the guy on defense then? It's not Bosa. I mean, he's very sedate, but he's a violent player. Is it Warner? Like who's going to be the player on defense that's going to smack people around during a game or have everybody around him? And get people fired up or hold them accountable.
I think it's Greenlaw.
But just is it going to be Warner? Who's it going to be on offense? Like I don't know. It's not Brock. It's his team, but it's not going to be Brock. That's not his personality. So I don't know. Outside of Asala, honestly, or D'Amico, where is that energy that going to come from in good times or bad? I don't think they have it coaching wise, and they don't have it. It doesn't seem personnel wise that they have that player that's going to do that.
I honestly think it's Greenlaw. I mean, you saw Greenlaw this weekend. He was out there making play. He was pushing the Cardinals.
He was
players.
being Big Dom, but instead he was Big Trey.
Big Dom. He wasn't even suited up. And I saw someone tweet, "You got Drake Greenlaw making plays. He's not even suited up. He's making more plays than the players." This guy's got energy. This man, I think they need that spark from Greenlaw because, like, the way. I mean, obviously he's great tackling, but he just has this energy about him. And I think when Fred plays with him, he has more energy because Fred's given out a lot of energy, but I think he's spent because he's having to really do a lot on this defense, more than he ever has, because he doesn't have that extra oomph running next to him. Usually it's him and Greenlaw or him and Shahir and Greenlaw. Like, you can tell they're missing that spark from that linebacker group because this year's linebacker group is just, they don't have that energy. And usually those guys lead the squad, and everybody feeds off that energy. I think Fred's trying his best. He's doing his thing, but he needs a running mate. And I think once Greenlaw comes back, he'll be that spark. But hopefully by the time he comes back, the record will be.
That's what everybody keeps saying. Like, Greenlaw, we have to win. Because if Greenlaw comes back, then we have we're 6 games behind the ball, the 8 ball. Then who cares? Keep him out the rest of the season. Brandon Ian made a good point. He says, the players that, are motivated or whatever, he said, these doesn't exist in 2024 anymore. These players make too much money nowadays. Doesn't mean enough to them. The only way to find energy is with younger players with something to prove, like we had in 2019. I'm not saying that's always the case, but I do feel like when people have a contract year or people are new in this league and they're trying to make a name for themselves, you always see the best of them.
Yeah.
When people get paid, people make business decisions. There's been a lot of business decisions this year. Like, it's happened in the past with Debo where he's been, like, hurt on the sideline. I'm like, are you really that hurt? Or are you just chilling? You know what I mean? Like, for me, this team has reached a point, because they've been together so long, that even if you're not trying to be complacent, it's a human trait. It happens. People become complacent. They have, in a way, and if you listen to some of the sound bites, some people are complacent. Well, hey, we give it our best. We lost in the Super Bowl, but not everybody makes it to the Super Bowl. So, there's something to say about that. There is that vibe that I get from this player base still sometimes.
And look at 2019 or 2020 though, before the injuries, they were all, the hot boys at linebacker. It was the revenge tour. And then that just went south extremely quickly, but that was basically led by injuries that totally derailed everything. In terms of business decisions, the Raiders are leading the pack with that, right? Based on what Antonio Pierce said a couple weeks ago, at least Ayuk showed some fire. He had a big game. What was it? 8 for 157. And nice. You saw once he started getting those first couple catches and the one that he took down the sideline for 40 plus yards, you saw the energy, almost like I'm worth it. Like, this is who I am. The first 5 weeks or 4 weeks were not Ayuk, and that was essentially his glorified training camp. So I understand him needing time to get up and into it. But for anybody that's gotten paid and fat and complacent, the way as fans we want to spin it is to always go out there, give maximum effort to prove you are worth the paycheck. The one that I feel like, not that he isn't, but doesn't give maximum effort all the time, like Deadpool, is Debo, right? Like, he takes routes off. He doesn't run it hard sometimes unless he's getting his tunnel screens. He's not a great route runner, which is, he may be a trade candidate after this season with the cap hit and everything. But I agree. Younger players, like, you are playing for, especially a draft pick, you're playing for your job, 4th, 5th, 6th rounder, or a free agent to get beaten out by a young buck. You're playing for your job every week, right? So there's something to be said for that type of hunger, but there's also something to be said for, like, yeah, I know you gave me the bag and now I'm going to prove that I'm worth it. Like, when Brock gets paid $50+ million, I hope fans give him a little bit of a break, because what are we expecting then? Because he's making $50 million. Are we expecting 50 touchdowns?
Right.
Of course not. If he goes 32-12, it just remains consistent, then he's worth the money. So there has to be a little bit of perspective with it as well. But hey, there's only so much more money left. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of candidates that are going to get fat and happy, because not too many more people are going to get paid.
Well, not only that, but I think there's going to be a lot of new faces next year, because we're going to have to get rid of a lot of people. You mentioned a couple of them earlier. So yeah. And also too, I think it's not just, okay, you're getting paid a lot and we expect more. I feel like also the way you handle yourself over the offseason, and we saw how crazy this year was. And, Debo had a tumultuous offseason a couple years ago. He got paid at BA, and then, when you have a player that has a very viral, offseason, and everything's kind of documented now with social media, it gets the fan base a little irritated. It's like, okay, you did all this, now you're getting paid, and now you're not playing good. So yeah, there's that. So it depends on how Brock goes next year. If he has a weird offseason, it's going to be weird for him. But I don't see Brock having a weird kind of. I think he'll stay quiet, let his agent do the thing. But we'll see. We'll see how much he's going to get paid. And depending on how much he gets paid, it's going to really dictate how the rest of this team is going to be shaped. So that also tells us, is how big is this window? That's what other people want to always argue is, did the window close last year? The Niners had their best opportunity last year. They went to the Super Bowl. They went into overtime. Is it closing? Like you said, Debo may not be here for too much longer. Kittle, he's getting older. We mentioned, Trent Williams, is he going to be playing for how much longer? So yeah, eventually this team's going to look a lot different, but can they keep it performing at a high level? Who knows? And I think that's where the frustrations of the seasons are coming, because window's closing a little. Everybody's getting a little airtight, a little anxious. You're starting 2-3. If you don't have a winning season, is it going to be like that last year of Harbaugh when all the people left? I remember it was a domino. Boom, Frank Gore left, Patrick Willis left. Like, imagine we go 9-7 this year. We missed the playoffs, and boom, Trent says I'm out. Trent says I'm out. What if he leaves? What if Kittle leaves? What if Debo leaves? It's going to be a weird offseason if they don't keep winning this year. So hopefully they can right the ship, get it on track. We'll see.
Any real quick things about Seattle before we get out of here? Anybody have a prediction they want to go with?
I think the Niners are going to win. I think it's going to be a close one. And the scary thing is, I think it's going to come down to a last-second field goal. And Matthew Price, a lot of pressure on him first game. I think the Niners are going to come down to the wire, and it's going to be a one-possession game, maybe down to the field goal. I say Niners probably win like, oh man, I'm gonna say like 27-25, something weird like that. I don't know. I just think it's gonna be a close game. Seattle's coming off a, game they're probably shook. They lost to the Giants. They're angry. They're gonna play with anger. It's a division game. The Niners and the Seahawks always have these classic battles. Thursday night football, I don't like Thursday night games. I hope they can stay healthy with whatever they have left out there, both teams. But I think the Niners are going to win a close one, and I think they got to get back to pounding the ball with Jordan Mason. Give him at least 20 carries.
And both teams banged up. I mean, Seattle missing Woolen. I think that's going to be big for what Mike McDonald's going to want to do. You have Witherspoon.
Aren't they missing their best pass rusher too?
They're missing a pass rusher. They're missing a D tackle. Niners, no Hufanga, Moody. So, both teams aren't coming in at 100%. San Francisco won at Seattle the last 2 years, night games, right? One was Thanksgiving night. One was, I think, another Thursday night or a Sunday night.
Thursday,
And both of those games, I predicted Seattle was going to win, and San Francisco did. So on my show on Monday, I am superstitious. I took Seattle 27-24. I'm like, listen, I spoke it negative or positively into existence because we're Niner fans for 2 straight years picking Seattle. So I'm going to go the superstitious route. And Seattle cannot run the ball, but they got 2 big bruising backs, and I think they're averaging about 100 yards per game. They're going to run the ball down They're going to try to run the ball down San Francisco.
The Niners showed in the second half that if a team comes at them and runs the ball physically, they wither. They withered. I mean, dude did whatever he wanted in the second half.
I mean, they've owned Geno the past 4 games, including playoffs. They have a 3-headed monster at receiver. Seattle does. And this is a Niner show. We know all about the weapons and what Brock can do and everything. I think I'm still PTSD scarred from Seattle and Legion of Boom in the 2010s, that I think it's a worse place to go than it actually is. And if the Giants can win there and Denver can play them close and they don't exactly blow out New England or Miami, that this is a ripe game for San Francisco to win. I am superstitious as hell. I'm going with my streak. I'm taking Seattle at home, and then hopefully the opposite happens.
Yeah, let's hope so. I think Nick Bosa is going to probably do some damage to Geno. That is the key, is if they can get to Geno. We mentioned that a little bit. Again, big time matchup against the Seahawks receivers. Mooney Ward's coming into this game questionable.
Yep.
And if he can't go, I mean, who's going to be tracking DK? We all know the famous, DK and Mooney Ward matchups. Last year, Lenore played him good on one of the games. I remember there was they got in a fight, him and Fred Warner after the game, towards the end, got a little scuffy, grabbed the helmet. I loved it. So that's going to be the matchup. Who's guarding Mooney Ward? And they got some good receivers. Lockett, I know he's older, but Jigba, guy's a monster. They got good running backs. So this is going to be a blood feud, man. I think it's going to be down to the wire. Thursday night is always one of those games, man, when you play the Seahawks in Seattle at night with the Niners. I don't know, man. Weird stuff happens, but I think the Niners have enough firepower to beat them, just because the key is that Tariq Woolen, and then, like you said, Byron Murphy's out on the D-line. But those injuries are going to be tough because McDonald, Seattle's coach, he was on the Ravens last year, DC, and I mean, he put together the game plan to just shut the Niners down. I was at that game Christmas night. It was not a good Christmas ending, and Niners got wrecked. So I think McDonald, his game plan's not going to be as efficient because he doesn't have some of his key players, but I think he will still play the Niners tough. He's going to try to get to Brock, but in the end, I think it's going to be down to the wire. And if Matthew Price hits a game winner, they're going to love this man. They're going to say, keep him over Moody.
Real quick, I'm going to go 24-21 Niners, because it seems like the Niners can't get past the number 24 as far as scoring the ball. And as long as Geno Smith is the Seattle Seahawks quarterback, I always believe the Niners have a chance. If this was anybody else pirating or commanding that ship, I would probably take Seattle. So I'm going 24-21, close game. Niners hold on in the end, and hopefully they can get some rest over the 10 days before they meet their bully and see if they can finally take that bully down. But one thing at a time. But that's all. That's it for me.
All right.
I'm gonna go and cry in my corner now and try to be more positive for tomorrow. But everybody in the chat, whether you're on Twitter or X, Raj's channel, my channel, thank you so much. Thanks for coming through. Thanks for putting up with me crying. Hopefully next time when you see me, I'll be in a better mood. Take care, everybody. Peace.
Take care.